I don't even know what I'm doing right now.
Oh, camera 1, camera 2. Camera 1. Live stream.
Hey everyone, thanks again for joining us today on BQLive. My name is Jerid Hill.
I'm Eric Deem.
And today we're going to talk to you about
Troubleshooting your DTG problems.
Right.
It's a big one.
Right. Now, obviously, there's so many different printers on the market today, and we're not going to be able to cover everybody's printer. So we're going to just do some general,
Basic.
just some basic stuff. So again, just as a reminder, what you guys want to do is send us your questions. If you actually have troubleshooting issues that you need help with, we might be able to help you right online.
Let's try.
Or, right live, possibly. So go ahead and send those in as well. Now, if you're watching on BQLive, we actually have, you can watch stream on there, but before, the only way you could chat was to go to YouTube. Now we actually have a chat right on BQLive. So if you go there, go down to the bottom right-hand corner, click on that, and we have somebody who'll be monitoring that and give us your questions and mention, comments, things like that.
Absolutely.
And then there's also a little window if you'd rather just watch it on YouTube, right on BQLive. You can always, on the upper right-hand corner, just click on Watch Live. It'll take you right to our YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's, so basically that's what we're going to do there. But we have the Artist of the Month now.
Yeah.
We got a
new
section.
little segment we have going on here. It's pretty cool.
Look at that. Isn't that a nice little tree? And he lives right here in this brush.
I love that new intro.
Have you seen that
I
yet?
love Bob Ross.
Had you seen that
No,
before?
that's the first time I've seen it. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
I've seen
great.
it.
I love it. I love it.
So anyway, so every month what we want to do is we want to showcase a new artist.
Yeah. So if you
Right?
guys even, we have artists that are watching the show. You guys want to be showcased? Drop us a line. Let us know. We can showcase you. We're doing this guy. So.
Right, and so what we're doing is we're actually putting the information on the website. So if you go to BQ.live, you're going to find a new section for artists, and it's going to showcase, we'll have some archives as we continue, but for now you can go on there, you can actually see a bio of this month's artist.
Right.
And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to showcase a young man I met 2 years ago.
This guy's got so much skill.
In Nashville, Tennessee, at one of our trade shows, and his name is Charlie Daniels, not the singer. I'm sure he gets that all the time. He's actually watching, so hey, this is a shout out to you, Charlie. And the thing about Charlie is you want to pull up, do you have some of his artwork on there? So let's just take a look at a couple of his
really
pieces.
cool.
So you can actually go onto our site, you can pull up his bio, you can actually see some of these images and so forth right on our site. There's a link to his website as well. And I'll talk about something else that he's created here in just a sec. But what's really cool about Charlie is he's a very, very talented artist. Him and his mother work together. And but when he was young, he actually was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy at 3 months old.
Oh.
And so what's kind of cool though is what he's doing right now, all these designs that you see, he's created with a trackball, and he has movement in his index finger and his thumb on one hand.
And that's it. That's how he's doing all of this.
Yeah, and so obviously he was born with a lot of talent.
That kind of puts the whole more talent in one finger.
Oh yeah,
In context, this guy is amazing.
Yeah, he's got some really, really good artwork. So we just wanted to thank him for, he's given me artwork throughout the years to be able to print. There's actually a shirt I printed for him. That his design, of course, and so he's given us some good artwork to print.
We've used him for marketing the Edge even.
Yeah, we've used his name on some of our marketing just to kind of give him a shout out for that as well. So anyway, but what we want to do right now is we want to guess the shirt.
Guess the shirt.
Guess the shirt. All right.
Okay.
So we have this design that I put together real quick, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Number one.
That's all I'm going to say about
First place.
that.
That's what it is.
So if you can guess what this means or what it is, we actually have a prize to give out, and this prize is an enamel pin Now this enamel pin was actually created by Charlie Daniels.
Yes,
right? This is his first product he's ever created.
And this
from
is
his
a
artwork.
limited edition too. So
Right.
whoever gets this, you're getting one of 100.
Yeah, there's only 100. You can actually get a link on our website in the bio as well, where you can get. There's only about a dozen and a half left, so there's hardly any left. But there was originally 100 of them, and they're numbered on the back. But this was his first. He told me that this was his first product he's created from his artwork, right? And his artwork
Besides just
was,
T-shirts.
Well, no, I mean this is like a first viable product,
Oh,
that,
okay.
right? That he's actually created. So this is an enamel pin, and the cool thing was there was a. If you look on our site again, there was one called Gone Bananas, and he said the reason why he did that was because he loves monkeys and he loves everything bananas flavored.
Okay.
Right, anything bananas and monkeys combined. So he actually created this called King of the Bananas. So that's going to be the giveaway.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. So we just want to say thank you to Charlie for participating in this.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's awesome.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to talk today about DTG troubleshooting. Now, we could go in so many different directions.
Oh my God, I didn't get so deep. We could spend
Right.
3 episodes on this.
So we're obviously not going to do that. So what we're going to try to do is just kind of give you some general information in regards to hardware
Yep.
and on the printing side.
Sure.
Right?
Yep. I think that's good.
Okay. So when it comes to hardware, the first thing we want to talk about is the print head.
And that's a print head.
Now this is a very old print head.
Yeah. It's Epson.
And this was an Epson-based head. There's all kinds of print heads. We have different ones we could look at. But the interesting thing about the print head is, obviously we have a lot of electronics components going on here. Anytime anybody does any kind of messing around with flushing their head out, these spikes, people try to push fluid through, pull fluid through. I always do that as a last result.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
But whenever they do that, some of the things that could happen is you could get liquid down into the electronic components,
Right.
and when you do that,
done.
you're probably going to fry your print head. You're probably going to fry your motherboard.
You can
as
also
well.
delaminate pretty easily by
You can
putting too much
delaminate,
pressure,
put too much pressure on
trying
the
to get
other
that
side.
clog through.
So some of the things that could happen with the print head, is like clogging,
Right. Especially on the white side.
right? So some of the clogging issues that we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
they can actually be even in relation to where these spikes are. Below these spikes, there's actually a filter down in here. So what happens whenever you have too much ink, it could be contaminated ink, whatever, maybe improperly filtered ink, that kind of stuff. When it continuously goes through, you can actually clog up these areas as well.
Internally, you're not going to get that out.
Well, you can if you back flush, but then again, that's a last resort.
Yeah.
Right? And so, back flushing, there's
Reverse waterfall, whatever. Yeah, there's several different terms for that.
right. So anyway, so this is basically the print head, but there's clogging issues that happen. All right. So
Anytime you're working on around a print head, make sure you have the printer completely off. Don't have any electrical going to it, because if you get any moisture, like you say, you get a drop of cleaning solution on the ribbon cables going into it,
right,
it can fry it. Anything like that can cause a lot of problems. So
right.
if you're going to work on that, turn the printer off, unplug it, make sure you have no power going to it, make sure it's completely dry before you fire it back up again too.
Right. So the clogging issue, it could be attributed to many things. So sometimes what you might think is a clog may not actually be a clog, right? So what I like to do is if when there's clogging, what you typically get is banding, right? And I think we have an image. If anybody who has anything to do with DTG, you know what that is. It's not that one.
Yeah, it's going to be the horizontal one.
It's the horizontal banding.
Yeah. There we
Just
go.
1 second. There we go.
This is the image we're looking for.
So you should be able to see that. If you can't see that, as a reminder, there is HD.
Yeah.
HD. Jack up your HD,
Yeah, you'll be able to
and
see
you'll be
it.
able to see it. But you can see that there's some in the cyan right there. There's some dropouts, some
steps.
horizontal lines, right?
Right, you
It's
see
a
the
step.
steps.
So it'd be a left to right,
Right.
is what you're looking at. And so what happens is, whenever there's a clogging that takes place, or let's say a nozzle that's clogged,
Clogged.
right? It's blocked. So what happens is when you're doing your steps, it's going to show this banding,
Yeah.
right?
You have a little bit more ink going on in one area than you do the other because you have nozzles being blocked.
Right.
So.
Now there could be a lot of things attributed to that.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is anytime there's any kind of banding, the first thing I do
Clean.
is a simple clean.
Yep, clean.
Basic clean, right? And so what we like to do is we always try to take the most basic. I mean, I've had people who would have banding like that.
Pull ahead.
And they're changing, they're changing chips that have no relation to that at all.
Put a new motherboard in it.
Yeah, put a new motherboard. And so what we found is when you start with the basics and you keep with the basics, that's when you're going to actually be the most successful, right? So the very first thing, if I have some clogging, the very first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do a simple clean, right? And then I'm going to do a nozzle check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Make sure it came back or not.
Right. And so what I'm looking at on the nozzle check, and I'm looking to see if there's any nozzles still dropped out.
Right.
If there are nozzles dropped out, then I'm going to do another simple clean. I'll do another nozzle check, and now I'm going to compare. I'm going to compare both nozzle checks. If it's gotten better and it's good, well, I just continue printing.
Right. It'll work. Sometimes those will work itself out too. If you got 90%, 95%, print some. That'll work itself out.
So but on some of these fine colors, it's hard to continuously print. Some heavy colors, it'll help work it out, but some of these fine, it becomes very noticeable. So what I'll do is after I compare, if they are different, but not in a good way, so let's just say some came back, but some are still gone. Then I'm going to probably do another clean just to make sure.
At what point do you decide to go in and maybe clean the wiper blade or something like that instead of thinking that maybe that's the issue?
Well, wiper blades can cause problems. Because what happens with the wiper blade is if you're not properly maintaining the product, your printer, that wiper blade gets gummed up, and it's going to push into the head.
Well, that too, yeah.
Right, so it's going to push that ink into the head, and it's going to clog your nozzles, and that could be an attributing factor of why your nozzles are being clogged to begin with. So that's something that you do have to obviously consistently look for. But on the comparing of the nozzle checks, so if I see a little bit of nozzles breaking free and I'm still going, I might do. You don't want to do too many head cleans.
No, you can foam the cap, and that can cause even more problems.
Right. So you might be doing 3-4 head cleans, and all of a sudden you've got the ink foaming inside the head.
And it's even worse than it was.
And you let it sit for 30-45 minutes.
Take a break.
Then it'll go away.
Walk away. Sometimes that's all that's needed anyways.
Right.
We get so upset and frustrated with the machines. We start looking for the worst case scenario, and sometimes it's the simplest thing. Walk away, take 10 minutes, get yourself together, come back and attack it again.
Yep. And a lot of times that solves the problem.
Yeah.
So now if we compare the nozzle checks and what we see is a movement of those nozzles. These nozzles over here are good. These nozzles here are bad now, but they were good before.
Yeah.
Well, then what we have is air.
Right.
We have air bubbles, not contaminant, but they're contained within.
Right. It's caused like a vapor block.
Right. So now all of a sudden it's moving around.
Yeah.
So chances are, that's what you're fighting against.
Yeah.
And the more times you do head cleans, the more chances of that building up more internally. So there's different things to remedy that as well. Now we have, it depends on your printer, right?
Of course.
Some printers, some of the stuff is not going to work for us. It depends on your print head. So, but what we like to do is if we have a movement of ink or anything like that, and like I said, we might just let it sit for a little while. If it's blocked nozzles, we do have some what we call head maintenance solution, and that works pretty good. I'll actually give a shout out to Anthony Creek.
Oh yes, thank you, Anthony.
Anthony Creek, the pointing guy.
Gotta give it to you. I know.
Because Anthony Creek had sent me a sample of what he calls the purple hammer. And that actually works pretty good.
It's good stuff, and it smells good. And you don't have to worry about getting it on you. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and that worked pretty good too. So there's different things you can use. Some work better for white ink. Some work better for coloring. Some work better for both. Some don't work at all. Right.
And you just talk to your supplier. They know what works best for their machines and with their inks typically. So if it's not us and it's whoever, then don't call them. Just call us.
So another thing that we've experienced is when you have your tray height.
Oh yeah.
Right. Now for us, we have pretty much a constant tray height. Once you find a sweet spot, you're good. But there are some printers on the market that have trays that are adjustable, and then you have reservoirs of ink, and those ink levels are changing all the time, so it's creating a different pressure internally.
Correct.
Right. So part of the problem could be, tray height. So if you have a printer that's got trays that are adjustable, if you go too high, and what we usually look at is the print head level, the bottom of the print head.
Right.
So we kind of eyeball just a little bit above our platen, because your print head's going to be slightly above your platen anyway. So when you're looking at the tray height, if you're extremely high above the bottom surface of the print head, you're going to create a lot of pressure, unless your system's pressurized.
Right, just depends on
Right,
the
so
printer.
again, that depends on
yeah.
what kind of system you're
Right.
using. But oftentimes, if you go way too high, what you're doing is you're putting in another added pressure.
Yeah.
And so your head isn't clogging. What's actually happening is it's beating up, the ink is beating up
Right.
on the bottom.
Like a drip.
And it's blocking the head, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a drip, and it's
Yeah.
blocking the nozzles.
Yeah.
Now, if you go too low on some of these,
Starvation.
you're right. It's going to be a reverse pressure,
Right.
and it's going to be pulling the ink back.
Yeah.
Right?
There's that fine line of, but typically once you get a set, you're good.
Right.
And again, some people hang their bags from the ceiling. Some people have cartridges. Some people, it just depends on your system and how it works as
Right.
to what's going to work best for you.
Right.
But that
what
can
about-
definitely be an attributing factor.
Right. What about no ink?
No ink at all.
Right.
Well, that could be a couple of things. It could be a bad print head. It could be a bad board. It could be a bad ribbon cable. It could be a bad capping station. There's
What
several items that could actually cause a,
What if you're printing really, really good,
and all of a sudden
and
you get nothing.
then a minute later you've got no ink?
Well, first thing I'm gonna do is a nozzle check, see what the hell's going on, and
Right.
see if I'm getting nothing at all.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. Well, chances are, and it isn't good. You're right. Chances are something like that is a blown fuse.
yeah,
Right.
on the
so
main.
on the main board.
Yeah,
Right.
like
on
a
the
number
main,
4 fuse.
Like if it's an Epson board or what have
Yeah.
you. Right. And again, we got to keep reminding you and reminding ourselves that there's so many different printers on the market. But a lot of times, if there's no ink at all, then there's not the information being sent to the print head.
A lot of times you'll get an error too, especially Epson-based machines. It'll, sometimes I've had where I replaced a print head before and I didn't get the ribbon cable fully seated, and the print head undocked. It started doing its thing, and then it slammed. It didn't know where it was, and we're going to talk about that also.
Right.
And I didn't have my ribbon cable fully seated,
Oh, yeah.
and it threw an error code, and,
Sure.
and it was like an overheat error or something like that. And that didn't make any sense to me, but I just went ahead and took everything back apart again, figured out what I did. I think I just like a little corner folded over. I mean, they're so sensitive.
Well,
know.
that's like a head hot error.
Yeah.
They might have different terminology for
Yeah, of
different
course,
printers
yeah.
and so forth, but a lot of times that's a crossing over of the ribbon, like you said. There could have been liquid gotten
Absolutely.
down in there too.
But
it
sometimes
could
you'll
be a
see where it's
crossing
burnt.
over.
You'll see where
Right.
it'll actually scorch your ribbon cable if you're not careful. You get it wet,
Right.
and short it out, it'll scorch that, and then that's a ribbon cable. And they're cheap, but it's a pain
Well,
to
the ribbon
replace.
cable's probably gone, and the board whatever board that's
plugged
being
into.
plugged into is
Yeah.
probably
It
gone.
could be an expensive fix.
So yeah, anytime, as a reminder, anytime you work with the print head itself, extremely careful not to have ink or liquid
Yeah,
or
any liquids,
anything
any liquid.
near any part of the electronic components,
absolutely.
because that will definitely cause issues.
It happens all the time.
Right.
Every day we hear about it.
Oh, yeah.
So
So we talked about banding, and so some of the other things that could be associated.
the most
with
notorious,
banding is what?
a dumper or a damper.
Well, they do call them dumpers.
Yeah, I
actually,
know.
but
Epson
I
calls them
like to call
dumper.
them damper. I've called them damper for years.
I've never called it a dumper.
And
To
I
me, it
read in
sounds
a
wrong.
manual one time it said dumper.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Epson's factory manuals call them dumpers.
It just didn't sound
no,
right.
it's a
to me.
damper.
It didn't sound right to me. So a damper has three main purposes, to my knowledge. There might be more, but three that I know of. Do you have an idea?
It's a pressure regulator.
Right.
So it's to regulate. So when your ink levels get lower, it doesn't affect your flow through the head. So it's
That's part of it.
Yeah, I mean that's
That-
one part of
you're
what
right.
it what
That's
its
one part of
component
the
is.
pressure. You're right.
Right.
There's a little bit more to it as well, but that is actually part of that. Something else? I'm just putting them on the spot. I want to see.
It helps with well, they fail a lot. I don't know why they fail, but they do fail a lot. But it's like a filter that's in there as well.
There you go. See,
So,
I just
so there's a
kinda gave you
particular
little bit
filter
of
in there that helps to
I twisted and gave you a little bit of a hint there. All right. Okay, so yes.
I'm in sales. What are you talking?
Well, you got to sell the damper.
So that's tech support.
Oh, right. Okay, so yes, it is a pressure regulator. It's
like a
actually a
valve.
reducer. What happens is when your head is moving as fast and as constant as is, you'll find internal pressures of the ink lines raise
Absolutely.
and lower, raise and lower.
And that
well,
regulates
this dampens that.
Right. Okay. Makes
Right.
sense. Yeah.
Right, it muffles it. It's pressurized inside here,
Mhm.
and so that's what it contains all that. So there isn't that pressure anymore,
Right.
and so that's one of the main things. But it's like what you said. It is ink. It is pressure though. So that's what it does. It controls that, and like you said, there is a filter on there, so it's going to help filter any additional ink, and a lot of dampers will also house air.
Yeah, they're like a bladder.
Right. So if you have air bubbles, so what we do with our ink is we do a very good microfiltration, but we do what's called degassing. So we remove excess air and gas from the ink, but we can't remove 100%. I mean, we're talking microscopic levels.
Yeah.
You can't remove 100% because if you do that, you could actually destroy your ink. So even though we remove the air, again, we can't do it 100%. Over time, it will build up. So what this will do is it'll also allow for air in there and not interrupt the ink flow.
Right.
Now, if the ink gets down too low, right, too much air is in the ink, in the dampers, then what's going to happen is you're going to have a dropout.
Right.
Right. So you're going to have, that's where you can start having your head clogs, or head clogs is really not the word. I guess it would have been more starvation.
Yeah.
Even though your tray's at the right height, blah, blah, blah.
All of a sudden, you'll start noticing.
Maybe you don't even have a
trailing
tray,
off little
maybe
bit.
a cartridge.
Cartridge, yeah.
The damper could actually do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So we actually have an image as well of what would happen if you dropped your ink. Oh, we don't have an image. We actually have
I have the actual physical shirt.
We have a shirt.
We have show and tell now, guys.
Yeah, we have show and tell.
So here's what it's supposed to look like. Okay, here's the first. I tried to pick something that images that everybody was familiar with. Famous images and all that stuff. So a lot of different colors in here, so everybody sees that. Everybody's very familiar with what they're supposed to look like. And then this is what happens when typically we lost all of our magenta. So same image, same everything, but with no magenta ink. And obviously we can tell right away there's something wrong here. And there's no magenta at all. So that tells me, if I lost the entire channel, that's, do I have ink? Okay, yes, I have ink. Do a nozzle check. Nothing's coming out. I'm checking the damper. Damper's going to typically be one of my first, after I do a head clean and stuff. That's going to be one of my first go-tos to see about. And they're cheap and they fail. I mean, we give people extra ones when they buy machines specifically because we know it's a failure point.
And
they're consumable.
And I want to correct one thing Eric said. He said we lost magenta. No, we didn't lose magenta.
I forced magenta to go away.
We actually have, in our RIP software, we turned magenta off.
I turned magenta off, just for proof.
I just didn't want to blemish our products.
Yeah. I'm a perfect printer. I don't ever screw up, ever.
Anyway, and on that note,
dumper.
So get back to the dumper right here. So yes. So if you're depleted ink, you're going to drop out your nozzle. So again, what I'll do is if I have a dropped out nozzle, what we talked about before, we'll do a nozzle check, do a head clean, do a
See if it
nozzle
comes
check.
back.
If it's not coming back, then I know my next thing I want to look at is the damper.
Yeah.
But I don't want to remove the damper. I don't ever try to remove ink, lines, anything unless I absolutely have to. So what we do, and again, it depends on your machine, but what we do is we have a method that we can put ink back into these dampers without removing any ink lines, without using anything like that. So we perform this method, and then we'll do a head clean, a nozzle check, the whole 9 yards, and then start printing.
We're basically priming the head,
Right,
priming the damper.
Right. Yeah. And so once we get to that point, we'll go ahead and we'll do a nozzle check, start printing. Everything's good, and then the ink drops out again.
Yeah, then you know.
Chances are this is going bad, and then we'll want to replace the damper.
And on some machines, that's a very quick, easy, cheap fix. On other machines, it's a very expensive technician has to come to your location to fix it for you.
Right. So it is definitely something that, again, in the line of progression, we always want to start with the most basic
Yeah.
and then move on up to the next.
At my shop, I kept half a dozen of those in stock at any time. And typically speaking, every 6 months or so, I would replace my white dampers with new ones, because the titanium dioxide and everything it's thick, it's heavy, it starts clogging those up a little. And you're talking about a lot of they're made by the billions. You know, they're not stable. You know, and the white ink is just so hard on everything, and just tears them up. So just for preventative maintenance, I always just replace them every so often, 6 months. If not needed, I replace them anyways. And it's cheap insurance.
Yeah.
Because nothing's worse than you print a shirt, and then and next thing you know, it looks like this, and you didn't catch it or something, and now you've lost all that time and money for a $20 part. You know,
Right.
Replace it. Be done with it. Next.
So the next area would be, because again, we're looking at ink dropping out. And remember, we said it could be one of many things.
Yes.
Right?
We're just hitting on the most prominent.
Right. So if we have, so let's just say the damper's fine. So we went through the process. The damper comes back, but then it just every so often it's not dropping out. But you're still getting this banding issue. It could be humidity levels too,
absolutely.
right? Now in Florida, we take that for granted
Yeah.
because we always have humidity.
Where I'm from in the wintertime,
Yeah.
in the Midwest, it's so dry.
Right. So you want to make sure that your humidity levels are whatever your manufacturer recommends. For us, we see 30-35%. We don't really need much more than that. Some people are saying 50-60%. So
You
just
really can't over-humidify the print area. You can over-humidify the shirts and everything, but
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want it to be raining in
well,
your
if
shop.
it rains in the shop,
You
I
got
think
problems.
you've over-humidified.
Just a little bit.
But for the most part, yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. You can't keep that much humidity in the air.
No.
You can't keep 85%
No,
humidity
no,
in
not
the
at
air.
all. It's not gonna work.
It's just not going to work. So
But that's a lot of times people, depending on where their location is, and they send me an email message or PM me on Facebook or whatever about dropouts or whatever. That's one of the first things. What's your environment? Are you outside? Are you in a box truck at a trade show, or are you in a controlled environment, or is it sitting next to your air conditioning unit, or is it sitting next to your tunnel dryer? These types of things will definitely affect your ink
right.
issues. So there's just a list we got to go down.
Right.
Troubleshoot it out, and
Okay, so on the
capping station.
capping station, right? So we have this could also cause problems for you when you're dropping ink out,
Absolutely.
right? And so Eric mentioned something earlier about the wiper blade. So this one has a wiper blade assembly that rotates out. The Genesis is stationary,
Some of the other ones are
so it doesn't
stationary.
rotate. So it just depends on whatever printer you're
Yeah.
using. But again, you got to keep the wiper blade clean, because if you don't and it dries and gums up, it will push ink back into the nozzles.
It also can, just like your car windshield, if your wiper blades start wearing out on your car, you get streaking,
Yeah.
and it's not going to squeegee that window very well. The same thing here, the bottom of that print head, if it got dried ink on it, not only can it push ink or dried ink and crud back up into the print head, it's not going to give you a nice even squeegee across the bottom of that print head. So if you got some lint, some whatever, something like that, it might miss it. So having that, and I mean, it is amazing how important these little minor cleaning areas are to consistency and being able to print, every time, every day.
Right.
So
Well,
sorry.
if you keep up with them, I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean,
you're gonna be able to alleviate a lot of issues in the future.
I love when people say, "Oh, I clean it every day," and we get their machine in, and
it's
it's
not
you
clean
can tell
every
they haven't cleaned it, they haven't touched it in a year.
Yeah, well, yeah. So anyway, on the cap station side, if the wiper blade is not clean, that's good. But there's also there's ridges on this particular capping station, and these ridges need cleaned off too.
Like little rubber seal,
Right, because if those aren't cleaned off, you're going to allow air in,
and that'll cause a drop nozzle.
and that's where you're going to have drop nozzles,
Absolutely.
right? And then another aspect of this is when there's so much. This is a waterproof, right? So you can get liquid down in here. It's not going to harm it
Right.
in that sense. But with ink, it's going to be tacky and it's going to build up. And
There's
once it
gears
gets down
and
into
stuff.
the gears, right? We
Yeah.
have gears all throughout the bottom of here. Once you get gears, then on this particular wiper assembly, the blade rotates, right, 90 degrees. And if it's, that ink is stopping it from rotating, then whenever that head moves over, it's going to hit that blade and it's
Yeah.
going to start grinding.
Yeah, it makes a
Now,
nasty
It's a
sound.
nasty sound. It actually doesn't hurt
It's
the
a
system
clutch,
at all.
and I'm pretty sure it's got a clutch.
Yeah, it shuts off. It'll shut off within, Well, I mean, it's trying to move it, and what it is it's that rotation of the motor, and it's stripping. Well, it's not really stripping.
It sounds like it.
Rubbing on the band, but it'll actually time out on its own with, I think it's something like 10 seconds. But you can always shut the printer off. But so if you don't clean those gears well enough, then over time. So this is one of those parts where I've heard people say every year they replace.
Yeah,
some people every 6 months, depending on
depends
their
on usage. Absolutely.
I say if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So try to at least be preventative in it. And keep
this still might be something you might want to have on the shelf, though. I mean, it's one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you basically for about $1,200-$1,500 on most machines, you can basically get every wear item you need, have it on the shelf, so you're not waiting.
Right.
Put a head in it, put a capping station in it, put a damper in it, put a encoder, whatever it is. It's good to have all of those items on the shelf if you can. Now, not everybody can, but if you can.
Right.
The other problem that we're running into, we're seeing now, and some of these older machines, this is made by Epson. This capping station is an Epson-based capping station, and they're getting some of these machines that are some of these older, more legacy level DTG printers. These parts are getting scarce. They're getting harder and harder to find too. So if you know you have
ones on the shelf,
if you know you have one that's hard to find, if you see them, grab a few, because you never know if they might be out eventually.
So yes, keeping it clean and that stuff. But there's also there's a little spring on this capping station. Now, not all of them will have it, but this particular one, you can see on the top of the image there's that little tiny spring. So, it'd be good to understand what your capping station looked like if it needs something like this. But if that spring is not there on this particular station, what will actually happen is when that capping station moves left and right, whenever the head goes over and so forth, it may not reseat itself properly.
Right.
And if it doesn't reseat itself,
gonna have problems.
Then you're gonna have air drying out.
Now, some capping station you can replace that actual cap itself too, not the whole assembly.
Right. This one here, you can do that, but it's it takes long. It takes a long time, and you still have ink down in the gears.
So
you're right, it does. But I've done it before just as a test, and there's all these little tubes in there, and it makes it very difficult. Some of them, I mean, and again, I think with the evolution of DTG, what we're starting to see, like with us on the Genesis, we're seeing that capping station completely redesigned. So there's like 2 buttons you push and you pull the whole station out.
Right.
It's very quick, very simple. So that's a lot of what we've tried to do is try to get around some of the obstacles we've seen in the past. But for some of the people that still have the old cap stations, the older ones and so forth, you're going to see that kind of thing where you've got to pretty much overcome it. And like you said, having them on the shelf is good, but even if you have grinding or anything, getting down underneath and clean, if you have access to it, cleaning off the gears as well.
Doing a big, spring cleaning on your printer is not a bad idea. On a side note with the capping station issue, I went on vacation when I first got into DTG and decided I'd flush all my lines, but I decided to leave the printer on with flushing solution in the cartridges and everything. This is on a 4880, so there's 220 milliliters in every cartridge of cleaning solution, and I left it on. Went on vacation for a week, came back, and my capping station was overflowing with fluid because the maintenance station was overflowing with the cleaning solution. And so I couldn't undock my head. I couldn't figure out what was going on. So it had pushed the spring up out of the capping station and pushed the cap into my head. I mean, I had to break the capping station to get the head off the cap. And I was like, oh man, I'll never do that again. So that was an expensive mistake.
So Eric's been learning DTG troubleshooting tips from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, from day one. Right. I mean, when we got into this, there wasn't a BQLive.
Right.
There wasn't. That's how you had to learn it.
Right.
So there wasn't. We didn't have the Facebook groups. We didn't have the teacher forums was going, but it wasn't the knowledge base wasn't there like it is now. So I had to learn the hard way.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we have another thing here, the encoder strip. It's depends on which machine you have. It might be taller than that. It might it shouldn't be thinner than that, but or shorter. But anyway, so what this encoder strip is, this particular one, it actually counts. There's vertical lines on this.
Okay. If you look at it up close, it's
right. So yeah, if you look under a microscope on this, you're going to see all these vertical lines. And so what it's doing is that head is moving left and right, and it's actually counting ticks. And I think this one, if I'm not mistaken, If I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll get corrected on this, but I think it's something like 360 vertical lines in an inch.
Oh, okay.
Right, so there's a lot of lines here. So if you don't have this clean, what'll happen is you could actually have a
Jump
bunch
a
of
line.
weird misprints.
It's kind of like
Well, the
having a
jumping
scratch
around
CD.
is part of it too. What's that?
It's like having a scratch CD.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. You can scratch these things
absolutely
too.
can.
If you're not, I mean, you want to clean them. A lot of times people clean them with alcohol,
Like a little
and that's
alcohol.
fine, or Windex or something like that.
Windex, though,
Well, as long as there's no any residue left
Right.
over, right? But I like using alcohol
I
because
like
it's quick, it
evaporates
dries
quick.
very
Yeah,
fast.
there's no residue.
But sometimes you just can't clean them anymore, and you just got to replace them.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
they're
they're
cheap.
very inexpensive parts.
Easy to replace.
But what will happen is we actually have an image on this as well. So if
Yeah.
you see that area right there where
The
you
vertical
have
lines.
vertical lines,
Yep.
what's happening is there might be ink or a scratch or something, some kind of malformation in that's giving a where the reader's not actually picking up where the head needs to be. And so what will happen is you're going to end up with these kind of weird misprints. And at the same time, you could also have vertical lines of ink print out of nowhere. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff.
a whole line. I've seen like a line going down the side of the shirt
Right.
where there was no art, there was no ink to be there, but a line went totally down.
Right. And then we've also seen where the capping station will grind,
Yeah.
right? Because what's
doesn't know where
happening is
it's at.
the head's not homing properly.
Yeah.
And if the head's on the opposite side, what we've seen is a slamming. If the head,
Oh, yeah.
because the head doesn't know where to stop,
Yep. I've had that more than once.
right? So
Yeah.
it'll continue there. So anyway, that's some of the things. So just some preventative maintenance, keeping it keeping it up, up to date on that as well.
Very basic stuff, but these are stuff that this is a heavy asked questions about
Right.
what these components do and why and how and everything. So,
Okay, so did we have any winners at this stage? I think we're going to check on that here in just a second.
I bet we do.
We did have a winner. We won't mention who yet.
Yeah, we have a winner. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm not surprised.
No. Okay, so obviously this one's going to run a little bit longer than normal because of it, but so we covered a lot of the hardware. Oh, one other thing, actually, just as a reminder, forgot. If you guys still have any questions, any troubleshooting things that you really need help with, go ahead and send us a message on that.
Yeah, we'll try to help you out.
We'll try to answer that here in just a little bit. We're almost at that point
If
now.
something
so-
comes up while we're going, once we're off the air, just email us. We're
Right.
happy to try to help you out as much as we can.
Right, at info@bq.live.
Absolutely.
So anyway, on the printing side,
Yeah. Okay.
okay, so what are some of the things that you've seen, on the printing side,
Fuzzy prints.
fuzzy prints?
That's a big one. People, and that's just due to typically in most cases a fuzzy print is due to a what is it? It'd be due to the shirt not being close enough to the print head.
Mhm.
Typically, if you're too far away, you'll start losing a lot of resolution. A lot of the sharpness of your print will go away. You start getting this weird kind of fuzz look. That's a lot of it. Obviously. Fibrillation, which turns into speckling and the white spots in the shirt, that's another big one. Pre-treat issues, another big one. So, and again, we can talk about, what happens when you don't pre-treat correctly. Here's a good example. Half the shirt was pre-treated, the other half of the shirt was not pre-treated. And I think you can see which one was, which one wasn't. And, a lot of times, I even still have this happen once in a while where I'll catch the edge of the shirt and I'll print too far away or too far where I've not had a pre-treat, and just the edge will miss it, and that's so frustrating
On the
when that happens.
pre-treat.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about pre-treating is as it gets better and better, you see less and less of it.
Oh yeah.
The bad part about that is if you don't know where you're pre-treating, obviously you're going to miss it like that.
Yeah.
So
That's a big factor,
You
though.
talk about fuzzy images,
Fuzzy
and that could
images.
also be attributed to a blurry image.
Mhm.
So if you had a blurry image, what's the first thing you would check?
Artwork.
Okay, well, artwork. What's a simpler? What's that?
I was
Pardon.
coughing.
The very first thing that I would check if I have a blurry image is my height.
Platen height.
Platen height.
Okay, well,
Right.
I thought we were talking
Yeah,
about
we're trying to go the simple first.
Yeah.
Right, because
You're
if Platen's height's correct and everything else is correct, all my nozzles are firing. It's no diverted nozzles, blah blah blah, the whole 9 yards. I'll go to the artwork.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so
I've done that before, where it's like I think and it's the artwork. It's like,
sometimes it simply is just the artwork.
It's artwork, yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the printer will show off more than what the screen will.
Right.
You'll see some flaws
Right.
in the art. That can definitely cause you some scratching heads. What the hell's going on here? And it's the art.
Right. Okay, so I've also seen. You talk about pre-treating, right?
Yep,
You've got some bad pre-treating. If you have like a heavy feel on your shirt, it could be attributed to a lot of things, but pre-treat's definitely one of those.
Too much
things.
pre-treat, and if you hover your ink, if you hover when you cure, that'll give you a heavier hand as well. A lot of ink will give you a heavy hand. The type of shirt you're using, and there's so many factors, and that's how you're cured. With Teflon, or if you're using parchment paper, if you're using craft paper, that can affect the feel and the weight of the shirt and the heaviness of the print too, and the hand, as you want to call it.
Right.
But I mean, that's a variety. I mean, there's such a large.
Yeah, so
range of things.
if you have a heavy hand, then a lot of times, that's what I'll do is I'll check, make sure I'm not putting way too much pre-treat on there.
Yeah.
And then I would also change the shirt itself, because if it's just like a jersey knit or something like that, you're not going to have you need more pre-treat, you need more ink, right?
Right.
So everything gets heavier.
Absolutely.
Plus the feel of the shirt adds to that.
Yeah.
So you have triple whammy right here.
Yeah, it starts feeling kind of plasticky.
Right. So if you do, you have a nice quality shirt, it uses less pre-treat, and you can use less ink. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
So when you do that, then obviously everything's going to feel softer.
Yeah, we did a video on that too, guys. Check it out.
Yes.
Sorry for the shameless plug.
Well, it's not too shameless, because that wasn't a personal thing. That
No.
was just the
Yeah,
BelQuette thing. So
we had a lot of, 11,000 views on that video, so that's been.
Yeah, we've been doing.
A lot of people have really enjoyed that video.
Been doing pretty good.
Thanks for watching, all the guys.
Oh, you're right. It was a shameless plug. Never mind. So anyway, on that note, no, seriously. So you have the heavy hand. So there are some things there that using different types of papers and all that. Instead of hovering, because if you do hover to cure, you're going to get actually not only a heavy, you're going to get a rough feel too.
Yes. But if you're a screen printer and you're trying to achieve a very similar hand to your plastisol prints, that might work for you. Some people want to feel the print. I don't want to feel the print. I want to feel like there's nothing on the shirt at all. Some people attribute that to how transfers feel and stuff like that, and I don't feel that way. And that's a personal preference thing. I think it's just like I don't like box fit shirts. I prefer a fashion fit ring spun cotton shirt, and that's just that's a preference, personal preference. But what else do you
White
have
spots.
issues? White spots. That's
that one there. A lot of people have issues with, and it goes. Sometimes it is the pre-treating, but sometimes it's just the shirt, and you just can't get around it. And really, what that is when you see, and it happens a lot in like solid colors.
Yeah, that's when you really notice it.
That's when you notice. But so what that is it's the fibers poking through the white layer, right? And when you print your color layer on top, you don't really see it. You can look at and see it.
Yeah, if you look at the angle, you can see
before
the
you
fiber
press
sticking
it.
out.
There's no white.
No, if the fiber folds over,
Right.
and you see the white dot then.
Right, because that's what it's doing. Is it's hitting it, folds over, it breaks that surface tension, spreads the ink a little bit, and now you're seeing the white ink underneath. So a lot of times, what are some of your normal techniques that people use?
Better shirt first and
definitely
foremost.
a better shirt. If you can't get around the shirt, then you're gonna have that issue. But most of the time, you can get around the shirt. If you're the salesperson, you're the one selling the shirts. Most of the time you can actually get around that by picking a better shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. That helps a lot.
But even some of those rough ones, a lot of pressure on your pre-treat.
Yeah. And maybe even bumping your pre-treat up a little bit to give it a little bit more moisture, a little bit more weight to hold those fibers down.
Right. And of course there's a balance to that too.
Yeah, you put too much on.
Where you put too much on, you're going to be staining your garment.
Bad washability.
Right. So it'll flake off in the wash.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things. So a lot of that is testing related.
Yep.
But a lot of pressure does help. The glues in the pre-treat will help bind the fibers down, keep them matted down for you. So you definitely like Teflon works really good. You don't want to use a paper. Of course, the Teflon creates a shine. So we have a video on that too.
Yes, absolutely do.
On how to
How
adjust
to
those
avoid
issues.
crystallizations, what that we call that.
Right. So But you do have the Teflon, but if you have to use a paper, some papers in the past, we used to have 2 different type of papers early on. One for pre-treating only,
One for
and
ink.
one for curing.
Was one a Quilon, and parchment type of thing?
And
Yeah,
so,
that's been.
but we've noticed throughout the years, it was still pulling the fibers
Yeah,
up.
it will.
And so now the regular, silicone-infused parchment paper
Works fine.
works very well
Works
for
fine.
that. You just
I'm
can't use them a lot.
I'm a craft paper
And
kind
he
of
likes
guy. I
craft.
like craft paper. I just like that feel.
Right.
And again, guys, just use something, whatever works best for you.
All right. So anyway, at this stage, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do our Q&A.
Awesome.
All right.
We should help some.
All right. So we do have Avery Tooley.
Okay.
What is the cheapest DTG printer for someone who is starting out?
Well, that's a loaded
That's
question.
a very loaded question. I was going
That's-
to say the exact same words.
That's a loaded question, Avery.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough to say because it's catch-22.
There's
And the way
way
I've
too many
looked at it
factors.
throughout the years is if you go cheap, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the best experience. I'm not
And
saying you're
same
going to
here.
have a bad experience, but what I've seen in the past is people want to get in as low of a cost as they possibly can, and they don't buy something that has the right support structure, this and that, on and on and on. It might not be proven, whatever it might be or might not be. They get a bad taste in their mouth for DTG because they haven't picked a printer that's right for them.
That goes to the other end too, though, the scale. Because people think that they spend $500,000 on a printer, that they're never going to have any issues at all, that's going to be flawless, and that's not the case either.
Right.
So you got to, I tell everybody that I don't feel as though there's one brand or model of printer that encompasses the entire industry that will work with every business model. But I do feel as though there's enough models and brands available in the marketplace that there is a perfect printer for your needs.
Right.
Budget. There's so many factors that have to be taken into consideration before purchasing a printer. It's not who has the best deal on Sunday. It's not who has there's a lot more involved with before just pricing and all that. So Avery, I mean, if you want to drop us an email or something, about some more specifics of what your needs and wants are, we might be able to guide you in a different direction as far as what's the best printer for your specific business model.
Right, because it's going to be difficult to answer. I mean, we obviously are biased towards our products.
But sometimes our products are not the best fit,
Right.
and I don't have a problem telling somebody that.
Right, so unfortunately, we can't just flippantly say it just
Yeah.
because we don't know what your needs are, what your budget is, or anything like that. Plus, we don't want to disparage any other company.
No,
That's
no.
not what we're here for.
Everybody
so-
has their place in the market.
Right. Okay,
Next.
so we got another question. Dalton Tyson.
Dalton, our good buddy.
How
Dalton.
does the troubleshooting work with the Genesis? Hey, that's a great question. Oh, since it has network capabilities and a large screen, does it have remote troubleshooting?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's the point behind what we've been trying to do with the Genesis. Again, this is all, we have to preface this by saying it is not yet proven technology,
Yeah.
but we've played with it and it's pretty cool.
We're basically
Put it that way.
inventing this technology as
Right.
we go. No, there's no printer manufacturer in any segment of the print industry, I don't care what it is, that is doing
Right.
what we're doing with the Genesis.
So, right, the idea is one, to have an onboard troubleshooting guide. So as we continue to develop it, we can push updates to the system, and then you could go ahead and troubleshoot it yourself right on board. But the
Training,
other aspect
tutorials,
of that,
stuff like that's going to be on there as well
Right.
eventually.
yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things we're working on right now has been to attempt to create an environment where we can connect to your system if necessary. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to do preventative. Not only preventative, your aspect has been preventative maintenance in DTG up to this point,
Right.
right? And so what we're trying to do is go on preventative failure. So, and again, this is all just, like I said, I prefaced this by saying it's all unproven yet, but we are on this pathway. So the Genesis out the door is not going to have all of what we're talking about, but if
It'll
we
have all
can-
the hardware. We can
Right, the
always
hardware,
add all
fine.
this stuff. That's the whole
Right.
idea here, is that we'll be
Right.
continuously adding more and more features as the machine matures.
Right. And so one of the things, our goals and desires in this, if we can get this to work exact, and I think we can. Like I said, we've got the know-how. but is to be able to connect directly to your printer system if we have to, and do that remote access like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's something that we are definitely working on.
Yeah. Okay.
So we got another question
Looks
here.
like it's the last question we're going to have time for today.
Once in a while, we'll lose a white channel when we remove the damper for the corresponding channel. It's got gray ink in it. What's that about?
That's settled ink.
Mm-hmm.
Gray. Your white ink will turn kind of a grayish color. Like if you've gone away for a week or something, you come back and print, and you haven't done any real major cleans or anything, the first white layer you put down, I've noticed like the first half of the shirt will be kind of a gray, milky, not very opaque ink, and then all of a sudden it turns on,
right,
and it's bright white. That gray sediment in your damper, that's nasty, separated, dried old ink.
That could be one scenario.
Okay.
Right? I mean, there's a possibility, because when the ink separates, it doesn't go down as bright, just like you said.
Yeah.
So, and if you're printing it on a black shirt, obviously it's going to
notice
be
it,
grayer,
yeah.
right? That could be, now if you're talking about your ink is actually contaminated, then that's a different scenario. But you're saying that you constantly are dropping a white channel, then, what we talked about earlier, chances are it could be the damper.
Yeah.
So
But she said that, or they, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say, replace the damper and it comes back. And
then it may not be fully primed properly.
Right.
And again, I don't know your system. With our systems, we prime it a certain way.
Right.
I don't know what your system is, but what I would say, there's a possibility that if it's not what Eric's talking about, the separated ink, it could be a possibility that the damper is maybe it's not fully primed properly. So if you have any way to prime it properly through your recommended
use a syringe of some
manufacturer's
sort, usually.
suggestions, right? If it's a syringe, what have you. Make sure it's definitely properly primed, and then if it continues, quite honestly, I'd just replace the damper again. Unless you keep replacing it over, and it could be a bad damper.
Well, it could also be like a J-joint, depending on
depending on your printer.
Depending on the printer. It could also be the actual fitting. I've seen that there's O-rings on some of those fittings where the ink line connects to the actual damper, and those O-rings can wear out as well. And if that happens, then you could be pulling in air, you could be causing other problems. The damper could then, again, you get in a vapor block within the damper, and that could cause other problems. So, there's some troubleshooting issues or technique steps that we could do to eliminate that. It again depends on your machine and the settings, and there's a lot of variables there. But that should be an easy fix. Yeah. That's something that should be able to be worked out pretty easily, I would think.
And if there is an actual contamination of ink where there's a crossover,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the worst case scenario could be a delaminated head.
Yeah.
Now, I don't usually go there that quick, but for us, black is right next to our white.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to determine, is it only on certain, is it white right next? Are you sharing the same head between all your colors?
Right.
So again, without knowing your printer, it's hard to troubleshoot, but there are a lot of different areas that it could be. But those are some I would.
You could be stupid like me and put the magenta cartridge in the yellow slot and the yellow in the magenta, and all of a sudden both ink lines are orange. You can't figure out why. I've had that happen.
That's cool.
Yeah. I feel like such an idiot.
I've never heard that story.
Oh, really? Oh,
That's
well, I haven't told you that, but you've never heard of anybody doing that. I'm sure you have.
I've never heard anybody doing that.
Never heard anybody swapping cartridges accidentally, putting the wrong color in the wrong slot. Wow, I really feel bad.
No.
Please, somebody else out there, please tell me you've done it as well, and I'm not alone in that horrible incident that I did. It took me several hours to flush everything. I mean, both cartridges were junk at that point because it backfed into it, and it was weird. It was a bad situation. I don't know what happened. There's no check valves on those lines, so as soon as I disconnected the dampers to start flushing, the ink went back down through the lines and into my cartridges. So both bags of ink were contaminated with mixed inks, lines, dampers. It was a lot of work to get it back.
Well, and once again, that's why Eric is a salesman and not a troubleshooter, a professional troubleshooter.
I do my best. I don't know it all. I try, but I definitely don't know all the answers.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
All right, we ready to tell the winner?
Yeah, so the winner is Rick Portune, and it is a happy face, smiley face. So if you actually type in, hold in the Alt key, type in the 1 on your numbered keypad, it'll actually be a smiley face.
These are a lot of alt codes. A lot of people don't know about these alt codes. So if you're looking for like the registered mark or the trademark symbol or copyright symbol, these alt codes are in there. So you can get online and find out all the various Windows alt codes. And
the nice thing is Mac users don't care.
I know. Mac. It's so easy
all
on
you
Mac
users out there, I'm with you. But it's all good. All right, so yeah, that's that. So we're going to go ahead and Rick, we'll get you out this King of the Bananas soft enamel pin. Once again, we want to say thanks to Charlie Daniels.
Thanks, Charlie.
For that.
Awesome
Thanks for
work.
watching too. We appreciate it. And again, as a reminder, we just want to make sure that everybody spread the word. We want to make sure that people are looking at what we have on BQLive, the information we had. Actually, I think, sorry about that, we just saw a coupon up there too.
Yeah.
Forgot about that one. But the coupon code is "It Happens."
What happens?
It.
Oh, okay.
So "It Happens." So it's in reference to a smiley face. I'd give you bonus points if you knew the movie, but yeah, it's not worth it. So I don't have anything to give you. The bonus points really count
He'll
for
give
nothing.
you.
But if you go to our web store, you can actually get 10% off anything in our web store. So you just go in, add whatever you want to the shopping cart. In the upper right-hand corner, it says View Cart. Click on that, and in the coupon code section, enter that there.
Yep,
It happens.
it happens.
You get 10% off. It's from now until the 28th. Actually, 28th. I'm sorry. Now to July 5th, I believe it is.
Oh yeah, it is July 5th.
So it's 1 week. 1 week from today.
Happy 4th of July, everybody. We won't see you until after the 4th. So hope everybody has a good holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Even you guys that aren't even in our country, I guess. We'll wish you happy Independence Day.
So again, we want to thank everybody for joining us today on BQ Live.
Definitely.
And like I was saying, you want to go ahead and share. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can subscribe to our newsletter. Go to BQ.live, and throughout the week, if you have any questions or anything else regarding BQ.live, just shoot us an email at info@BQ.live.
If you guys are not members already, join the Facebook group for DTG owners. It's really good. We got a couple thousand people now. So, and it's not BQ, not BelQuette. It's every brand, make, model of DTG printers out there. So it's really good. We advertise this show on there as well. So if you guys need to know what the next show is and forgot to go to BQ.live, check us out on Facebook. So, anything else?
No, I think that's it. So until next time, once again, we just want to say thanks.
Definitely.
And we'll see you next week.
See you guys. Thanks.